It is written in Scripture, Psalms 90:10 to be exact, that the lifespan of a man is three score plus 10, and if by strength 80. I've been reflecting on that truth a lot of late as I personally am having to deal with some minor health issues that certainly in some ways, if not addressed, could become more problematic. But I think sometimes, especially in our society today, we like to, how should we say, stereotype, label what the reflection of good health is. And although certainly people wouldn't buy into stereotypes if there were not a certain amount of truth into them, or at least if they were not accepted on some level. But I think our balance on it is thrown off. I think that society as a whole tries to view health based on certain standards, as that's the 90%, and that genetics plays 10%. From what I've experienced and witnessed, I would say it's the other way around. If nothing else, COVID has proved that to me, or reiterated that to me, solidified that belief, as there are healthy young individuals that I didn't know directly but were associated with people I'm close to. They were connected to these people, some of them on a very deep level, like family members and such, that passed from this horrid pandemic. And I don't doubt that it exists. I don't think our handling of it is correct because we go on, like I said, the image of what health is. And, someone is super morbidly obese. Oh, it's guaranteed they're going to die. They're going to get it. 3 years, I got tested positive once and stayed asymptomatic. And you can sit and debate, oh, it was a different strain. You don't know that. How can you prove that? Because all the test does is point out whether you have COVID or not what strain. 10 days they kept me away from one facility and moved me to another because I tested positive for COVID and never once showed any signs of it. Had a friend of mine pass from cancer. I won't mention his name because I know on some level the family is still grieving. And I don't know, I don't want to be too personal. I want to respect, don't know their wishes, but I want to respect them. And what may well be their wishes. But he had cancer. And two of our mutual friends and a friend of his that he met later on in life were both around him one weekend when after he had cancer for quite some time, and all three of them apparently had COVID and never contracted it, didn't die from that. Cancer, unfortunately, eventually beat him. On the surface, he appeared to be a more healthy individual than myself. I have relatives, again, won't mention names, but as far as their appearance, and even if you go back to what their physical abilities that they've been blessed with and how they trained for several years to be able to compete with those physical abilities, have major health problems, and I do not. You're talking about a man who's over 500 pounds. Our last one we checked on the scale. Hopefully I'm losing some weight. You know, I guess the point is, I've realized since I was young how much a factor genetics is above all else. I had grandparents on both sides of my family, obviously, but on both sides of my family is my point. Um, my four grandparents, three of them lived to be in their 80s. One of those after he suffered a stroke. And of the other two, they smoked into their mid to late 50s and both lived to be like around 87 or 88. That's genetics. How do I know that? Let me explain. Jim Fixx, who the older generation will know, wrote a book on the benefits of running. I think it was called The Complete Book of Running or something like that. That brought him international fame, certainly national fame, but on some level international fame. Smoked till he was 35, dropped dead at 52 when he was doing his daily run. My parents, and Jim Fixx ran marathons, by the way. My parents had a friend of theirs that, yes, at one time had been somewhat overweight, certainly never 500 pounds, didn't make it past their mid 40s, and they were running marathons. I'm 48 and weigh over 500 pounds. Alfred Hitchcock, yes, he had some severe health problems, but he was 80 when he passed. Who doesn't have severe health problems at 80? Very few. And those people might live to be in their 90s and 100s. Oh, by the way, I've had individuals on both sides of my family live into their 90s as well. And we could sit and debate, again, based on appearance. Some people would assume, oh, yes, but they didn't carry the weight you did. Well, that's true. That's true. But that doesn't mean, after all, like I pointed out, Alfred Hitchcock spent his entirety of his adult life morbidly obese and super morbidly obese and lived to be 80 years of age. My point is that we need to quit assessing people based on appearances and assumptions and accepted norms, especially when it comes to matters of health. Believe it or not, yes, I have periods where my blood pressure gets high and it spikes under times of stress, pain, and just like most of us, those all come at one time. And I'm not gonna lie, this stage spike is as long as almost 3 months at one point. And some of those readings during that time got up in the 170s as far as the top reading. But do you know that from May of last year up until about 2 weeks ago, this is no joke, my blood pressure on the average was 120/80 with a 74 pulse, and my resting pulse when I woke up in the morning was 66. Genetics. I'm not trying to be arrogant or cocky. I'm trying to make a point that the individuals that assume that because they eat right, run every day, do whatever, that's a guarantee that it's going to extend their life, that's a form of arrogance. It may extend your life. I do not doubt those things help. I'm sure if I got back to a point where I was doing those things, could do those things again, it's certainly going to extend my life on some level. But to say it's going to add 20 or 30 years if my genetics is bad, it's bogus. Jim Fixx stopped smoking when he was 35 and was dead 17 years later. Lost 60 pounds over a decade and was already running at that point, and then published a book about it. One of the foremost gurus on health and how to be fit when I was a child. We need to wake up to the reality that genetics is the biggest factor. Certainly, if we mistreat our body, it's going to shave off some years, but you can't determine how many years it's going to shave off any more than you can determine how many it's going to be added to one's life if they do certain things. Let's think of the number one examples. George Burns smoked cigars every day of his life and lived into his 90s. I don't know how much he drank. I know he had some drinks every day too, though. Folks, what you need to do is learn what your genetic makeup is, what your go through your family history and see what the genetics are. That should be your biggest concern. And then you need to see where the negative genetics fail, like whether it was with the females, at what age, males, what age, so on and the like. And those are the factors that really are going to determine the longevity of your life and your health issues throughout your life. Now, I'm not discouraging exercising, eating right. I certainly know those things have benefit me. But if you're going to tell me they're going to knock off 20, 30 years of my life, no. 5, maybe. I might even go as far as 10. But if I die any earlier than that, it had nothing to do with the way I was treating my body. It had to do with genetics. And then again, how are you going to measure how long I was supposed to live? Well, the only measurement I know of is what is written in Scripture, Psalm 90:10. This is speaking of an average lifespan. That the lifespan of a man is 80 + 10, man meaning mankind, and if by strength 80. My dad lived to be 77. My Papa Jiggs, whose heart was riddled, lived to be 76. My dad had an uncle, great uncle of mine, much beloved, had severe diabetes, still made it to 69, even though he had weighed over 400 pounds. The point is every one of them got almost exactly what they were promised, and 2 out of the 3 I used as an example were stronger than that and lived past that. My mother has Parkinson's and is 73 and still kicking, and should have left this life long ago, any of y'all that know her, through all the things that her body's been through, and she's still here. Why? Good genetics. By the way, her mother, who had severe arthritis and some other health problems, lived to be 83. Genetics, folks. Genetics, genetics, genetics. And then the things you do to try to extend your life. That being said, I'm Thurman, and this is Blatantly Honest.